today, it's all about the pretty form and the shape and what's it look like from the outside versus what's the actual function and use of it. And in that, the question is, what's the real efficiency of the plan? And a lot of times it's terrible just because it looks cool on the outside. And I can't give any better example than the cube house housing project in Rotterdam, where it looks cool. It's a cube on its side. It's bright yellow. It's up over a street, so but when you get inside, it's a cube turned on its side, so all the volumes are off, and literally in one hallway, it has a corner sticking out, and it turns like a 4-foot hallway basically in half. So I have to like squeeze past this corner thing, and it's like it makes no sense at all. And you can easily get tossed in there because all of the doors look identical, even the door to the stairway. So you can end up like walking into someone else's room on accident because it's because also it's Europe and it's not all clearly marked, or it's in Dutch. So, like it's not quite as easy. But I just feel that today, that plan and that real analysis of it, because it should start with the plan, because that's how you move through the space, and that's how you. I mean, I feel you can also start with the section as well, but I feel with the plan, it's just how we actually are able to move and operate in it. Versus, oh, this is a cool parametric spiraling form thing, and it's like, yeah, it is cool, but like, what's the overall, like, how real different is that from a box or something in plan?
So if you go back to the late 50s, when you had a conflagration of brilliant minds all studying at or all teaching at the University of Texas. So you had
Uh-huh.
Colin Rowe, you had Hayduck, you had um, uh, uh, forget the dean at Syracuse, but you had these great intellectual minds that were all trying to reach tenure track in Texas, and they didn't get it, and so they all dispersed to mostly the Northeast, and they ended up a number of them at Cornell, and so the Cornell School of Thought is the plan, the plan, the plan. If the plan is right, everything else falls into place. It's not about creating these ziti forms on the outside of the building, but it's really diving and making sure that the plan works, because that's the experiential part of architecture. Um, and so there's a certain aspect of architecture that makes sense. But then I'll throw this out. If you look at one of the most intriguing buildings that I find that troubles me, and it makes me fascinated, is the Casa Musica by Koolhaas, and it's this warped cube that has a series of very different kinds of spaces, and so it is experiential architecture. And the way he designed it was a journey through the building, and it had several different. It had, I think, 2 performance halls um, in it, but it's a journey to the building where you end up at the end of the journey on top of the building overlooking the city. So it's this. It looks like this alien craft, that just landed in the middle of a medieval city. So the form on the outside looks very perverse, if you look at how it fits into the city. But, and even if you think about the plan from a conventional point of view, um, the spaces are ill understood as you move through it. But as you take this journey through the building, you enter the building, you go through the lobby, you go into the performance space, you come out, on top to the practice rooms, and you end up on the very top of the building overlooking the city. That was the purpose of the building, was to create a journey through these different kinds of spaces. And so, and I think Koolhaas is very good about creating those kinds of spaces, compression
Exactly.
spaces, open spaces, even confusing spaces. So I
Mm-hmm.
hear what you're saying about the plan. But then I think about a building like that, and it, truly that was more about the section.
Yeah.
It's not a core building. It's not a niche building. It is very much, true to the architecture that Coolhouse has been pursuing for, his whole career. But
Yeah.
it's really for me, one of the more fascinating buildings that he's done, because I really I don't find it to be an attractive building from the outside, but I
Yeah.
find it to be a fascinating building when you talk about how you move through the spaces and the kinds of spaces that you encounter when you're in it.
Spot on. And I think Coolhouse is just the master of doing weird but intellectually deep buildings and spaces and forms. And there's one also, I believe it's the Dutch embassy in Germany, but I could be mistaken. But it's a cube and then an outer wall also, and the outer wall is all of the surfaces, and in the cube it's that same kind of journey up through it, and that many times there are these framed views of the true monuments around the city, and to really give you that sense of okay, yeah, I'm in this building, but I can see that steeple or this tower or what have you. And I'm blanking on where that explicitly is, but there's this great drawing of its plan, and he basically unspirals it, and it's just one long plan, but in reality, it has all of these turns, and it basically corkscrews up to the top. And I think there's a roof garden, if I'm not mistaken. But and I think that's a space we can get into, especially today, and thinking about plan and sections simultaneously in the creation of spaces, without being such a slave to one or the other. Because in plan, how do you really get the feel of the space? I feel the plan's more of the organization, and the section is that feel and that full experience of, oh, it's actually a sloping roof or whatever, and it seems it'll be we're kind of doing it through modeling, but that's more building volumetrically than thinking about it in spatial terms like section and plan, and but it'll be interesting if we can have even more in-depth programs that can operate on I feel Previt also is both basically at the same time, but it's still thinking about it 3D versus almost like a 2D section.